Okay, now let's start getting into our game loop. So start setting up a function in here. And this is going to be our game loop function. And again, we need the event. This is just going to be :event. And again, we're not going to return anything from this, so void, open curly bracket, and let's come down a couple of lines and close that. So now inside here, what's the first thing that we want to do? I want my gun target to do a start drag. With that, I'm going to specify true inside the parentheses. And what the true statement is for is basically telling the start drag to look at the registration point of that target, of my gun target. Next thing I want to do is take my score text. Since we are dealing with the text field, we need .text. And we want that to equal a string, because we're going to concatenate a couple items. I'm going to concatenate within that string. I'm going to say score : space parentheses to close that string, plus my score variable that we're adding up the score inside of. And that's going to concatenate those two together. Next thing I want to do is do a countdown, so I'm going to call a countdown function. And that's a way that we can call a countdown function. It doesn't have any parameters. We're not sending it anything. We're not looking for anything back. We're just going to start counting down the time. We'll set that up here in a little bit. Next, I need a condition. So an if condition. So if I need to select a target, and remember before we set that up as a boolean up above to equal true or false. If I just say select target, it's only going to check to see if that target is set to true. Otherwise, I could also say equal true to check the equality or the value of that. Next, I'm going to take my count, which is my time, and I want to round it down. So I'm going to do a math floor to help round that number down, and I'm just going to do it on the count by itself. Make sure that it's always rounded down. Next, I'm going to take my target timer. This is when a target has been selected, and I'm going to make it equal to the count minus 2. So it's going to be less than the count, and it's going to show up for 2 seconds. Look at my timer and say, oh, I'm going to show my target for at least 2 seconds. Next, I'm going to create a random number, and again, that was just a number up above. So I'm going to do a math floor, so it goes down to the nearest number, and within that, I'm going to do a math.random. And how many random targets do we have? Well, we got 10 targets, so I'm going to specify, or we have 11 targets, so I'm going to specify the number 11. So it's going to create a random number between 0 and 10. When we do a random, it's always start at 0, and then how many do you have? I have 11, so it's going to be 0 through 10. Now, if my random number is greater than 4, so 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4, and I need to put this inside of parentheses, is greater than 4, I want my target timer to minus equals 1. That will add one more second onto this, so it will display just for 1 second at that area. Now, if my random number, let me make sure we spell this correctly, spelling does count, equals, dealing with the double equal sign, 8, so that's dealing with my target 9. Now my target 9, if we close this and actually look at it, let's hide some of our interface and let's unlock these. This is my target 9. Basically, I want to start it behind this mountain and only go over to this mountain. So dealing with that, what we're going to do is set it up so it will only be displayed between those two fields. So that's my target 9. It's going to be the number 8 is going to equal number 9. So, and then if my switch on that, my X switch, which is going to be the number 4 switch for this, because it's the 4th one in line of our targets that are moving left to right. So if that is set to true, then I want my target 9.x to equal that starting point behind there. And remember, these are the starting points from behind that area that we should have looked at and set up before. Else, I want my target 9.x to equal 140. And that's the value that I found to be between those areas. Okay? Else, if it's neither of those, so let's go ahead and finish this one off. Let's go ahead and close this next one off and say else my target 9.x, and we're going to set it back to a -70 so it's off the stage. So if it's not moving, we're going to move it off the stage. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. And then I need to come down and select a new target and make that equal to false. So equals false. Okay, now that basically takes up most of our game loop. There's a couple more areas in here that we need to deal with, and that's our count and setting up how is our count going to start counting down. And with that, we'll finish up our game loop. We'll get into our countdown function. So our countdown function from up here, we'll get that set up and continue on in the next lesson. So we'll see you in the next tutorial. Thanks.